Okay, so we're going to give you some practice in random sampling. And let me make it a little bigger here. And so in this column, I have made a mixture of yeses and nos. Okay, and so perhaps the question is, who wants more math homework? And we're just going to do a random sample. So there's 1,000 in there. And how do you know how much there is of each? Okay, so what you can do is count the yeses. So it's easy if the whole column is A. So you just say equals count if, okay, and we're going to just say count if yes, comma, A colon A. A colon A. So we'll highlight that whole column. A colon. And we don't get anything. So let's see what we did wrong there. Yes. Seems like we're doing the right thing. So let's see. Well, I can always just do Control Z, go back to what I had before. So if you look, you see, you have to put the range first. Okay. All right, so let's put in there. So say equals count if, okay, and it said that, a conditional call across range. So A colon A comma yes. Okay, so there's 200 yeses in there. And let's go in and count our nos equals count if A colon A comma, and then in quotation marks, no, there's 800, right? And so, in other words, the yeses who want more math homework are just 2/10. So they lose the vote by overwhelming majority. The question is, if this is the sentiment of 1,000 students, how big a poll do you have to take? So do you have to ask every single student? Or could you just take a small sample and get very close? Okay, so I'll show you a way to do that, okay, to take a small sample. Now, there's probably much better ways, but this is the way I could figure out how to do it. Okay? And, you know, so you kind of spent your time on the internet looking. And so what I did is I said, rand between 1 to 1,000. Okay? And I did that, so you're going to do that, and you're going to pull it down for 30. So for me, from cell 3 down to cell 32. Really, 32 is the one that you want. 3 to 32, so that's 30 values. Okay. And then what I do is I put in here equals unique. Okay. So let's go through that. And then over here we're going to put them together, and then we're going to use the indirect. Alright, so let's cancel these out and go over it again. Oops, that didn't do it. So we're going to edit and delete the values. Okay, so we're saying we want to have a random number between 1 and 1,000. We want 30 of them, so we're going to take a sample of 30. Right, so we go from 3 to 32. And then in here, we're going to say, give us the unique ones. Okay, so at random, we could get the same number twice. But notice there was a number twice, so unique eliminated one. So now we just have 29 in our sample. And then here, we're going to concatenate. So we're going to put an A in front of it. So what we're trying to do is find out what's in cell 894, cell 517. So we're going to ask about cell 894, right? And so we're going to do that concatenate command all the way down. Okay, so we do it, and we'll do it all the way down to here, because sometimes we get it. And you'll notice that every time we execute a command, we get a new set of random numbers, and that's actually a good thing for right now for us. Okay, so now what's our formula? Our formula is one that you haven't seen before called indirect. So it says use the address, use the cell number in E3 indirectly. So in other words, we don't want to look at E3, we want to look at A616. So E3 is going to tell us where to look. Okay? So this is a technique called indirection that you'll find gets used a lot in computer science. Okay, so now, over here then, we say we want to have yes and no in the sample. Okay? So what we are, we're looking at from F3 to F32. Okay? So in there we say count if, from F3 to F32, count the yeses and count the nos. Okay? And so, what we're going to do then is, each time that we enter something, so to get started, you can just write, for example, start test here. Okay, so notice how 97 is at the top right now. Well, we're going to start a test, and when we enter, now 174 is there. So we have 8 and 22. So we had 8 yeses and 22 nos in our sample. How close is that to 2 out of 10, 200 out of 1,000? Well, really 6 is what we're looking for. Okay? So you can see that when you take your sample, you don't always get. So we want to get a decimal equivalent, so we're going to say 8 out of 30. So we got 8 out of 30 is our number of yeses. Okay, so yeses and nos. So we hit that, and now we get a 3 and 27. So we say equals 3 out of 30. So a second sample, so every time you hit enter, if you look at the numbers, you're changing which of the 30 cells you look at, which 30 cells you look at out of the 1,000. Oh, that didn't work, equals 12 out of 30. Well, we know what that one is, right? Equals 0.1. So I think sometimes it thinks it's a date. I might have to put it in parentheses. Okay, so now we got a new one, 6 out of 24. So that equals, so if we do that, then we're okay. It'll put, I put it in parentheses, it should work. Oh, how frustrating. Yeah, you know, what if we just format this and say it has to be a number? Let's see if that works. Okay, so say it's going to be a number. Okay, so now that seems like it's going to be a little better. Okay. So now we say, okay, let's start our test again. Keep going. So we got 606 there. We have to do something. We want to get a new thing. And really, if you just type anything, you should get a new. So we got a new one there. Okay, so we got 7 out of 23. So let's see if that works. Equals 7/30. 7 out of 30.23. Okay, all right. Now we got a new one. Oh, we got another one. Okay, so we got same thing. Equals 7/30. Okay, so all we're doing is we're saying we're putting in the number of yeses out of the total to see what we get. So 7/30. Okay, and we got a new one. Oh, this time 2 out of 30 equals 2/30, 0.7. Okay. Now this time we get a much higher number. We get equals 9 out of 30. Okay. So what am I doing? I'm taking, so out of our sample, I just add them up. So 9 and 21 is 30. So sometimes it's going to be a total of 29, but usually it's 30 as long as there wasn't a duplicate here. Okay. And of those 9, the top number is how many yeses there were. Okay. So we had 9 out of 30. So 9 out of 30. All right. So now let's try it. Let's start our test again and see what we get. Okay, 804. I'm going to say again equals. Okay, so we got a new one, 4 out of 26. I guess I had to put a formula in. So that's 4 out of 30.13. And it looks like we got it's the same thing again, equals 4 out of 30. And we hit enter, and we get 8 out of 22. And we get equals 8 out of 30.27. Okay, so what you see is there's actually a big range. So let's let's put that in. So equals, so range, so we say equals the range of, so our sample gave us, what do you mean it doesn't do range? Oh, do we have to do min-max? Oh, how boring. All right, so let's see if we can do that in one thing. So we say equals min minus, or max minus min of the same thing, of I3 colon I12. Okay, and so the range was 23, so even though the actual value is just 0.23, you see that we got this enormous range of values all the way down to 0.07 up to 30. Okay. So what was our average? What's our average value? Okay. So you say, well, it equals the average of that same. So, and look at that. So the average actually came out. Okay. So we got a bunch below and above, but they averaged out. And so that might tell you, well, maybe if I take several samples of 30, it would work. Okay. So now let's look at equals the standard deviation. So how much variability was there between samples? Okay, so we're trying to find out, we know what the answer is, right? We know that the answer is 0.2 because we see 200 yeses, 800 no's. And now our job is just to find out how to do it. Okay? So if let's highlight some of the things that we have to do here. Okay, so I've made the list for you, but you have to put in the COUNTIF statement. COUNTIF, that column is yes. COUNTIF, no. Okay. Then you have to do a rand between, and I'm doing it for 30 numbers, so from 3 down to 32. So when you do rand between, you're not always going to get 30 unique numbers. So I use the formula unique on C3 to C33. Actually, I should do it to C32, right? So C32. Okay. And that gives me unique. Now, if they're the same, it means there wasn't any duplication in the list of 30. Now we put together, we say, okay, we've chosen some numbers to look in out of the cells 1 through 1,000. Now we have to put an A in front of them because they're in column A. So we do that with concatenate. And now we're ready to use a command you've never seen, which is called indirect. So this says indirect, don't do what's in E, but go to the cell that you find in E, and that cell is the value you're looking for. And we move that down, and that gave us a sample, so we got 30 out of the 1,000 values. Okay. Then here in a yes-no, we said, okay, of those 30 values, how many are yes? We did a COUNTIF on yes and a COUNTIF on no. Okay, and then it's a little bit strange, but what you'll see is that the random integer takes, every time you input something, it'll change. And so if you're not sure what's happening there, you can just watch right here. So let's see what happens. You can just say equals A1. And if you put that in, so notice how 799 is our top value. And we enter it, and now 301 is our top value. So we've gotten a whole list of new values. So, okay, so give this a try, and we will work on this some more.